I'm not really one to do with maybe interviews or people's stories or stuff like that. My conviction is based on the Bible. But I saw one interview of someone who used to be a witch and got born again. And she described something that I see. You have to understand, it is not only people who practice negative spirituality that can see. Something that I see. When I see people who are vulnerable, there are some people who are vulnerable. You can be a church goer and be vulnerable. And she said, even if it's a Christian, two people have said this, by the way, two people that I know of. A Christian whose walk with God is not as it should be. You can tell that they belong to God. But okay, the other person described it this way. It's like in the realm of the spirit, you see an armor, but there is a spot. The armor is vulnerable, is compromised. There is an avenue for attack. I was describing how there are some things that a believer can do that can, listen, this is well founded in the scriptures. That when this false prophet is supposed to cast a spell on God's people, he discovers by spiritual observation and divination that there is no enchantment against Jacob and there is no divination against Israel. So he changes his strategy. And what he does is that he introduces God's people to, for instance, sexual lewdness. And he made God's people to have affairs with the temple prostitutes. Listen, I'm going to teach on this so that you understand why the media is the way it is. You have to understand. Old Testament temple worship, let me describe it to you. There were brothels in the temples. It was part of the worship. Listen, you have to understand, sex is a crucial part of satanic worship. A crucial part. That if the enemy wants to take over someone's soul, he wants the soul corrupted. And one of the ways they do that, it is by all kinds of sexual perversion. And that is why it was part of their worship. They were temple prostitutes. Are you listening to this? There's a long teaching. What I'm telling you is actually the oldest religion in the world. It is marked by two things that you will see in every generation in different shapes and forms. Number one, child sacrifice. And number two, sexual lewdness. The day I teach on this thing, heaven will fall. Because your eyes will open. You will see that you will see that the witchcraft in Nigeria is still learning. It's still learning. This is not that type of service. I'm going to need to show you beyond reasonable doubt, because, and I'm going to need to show you in the Bible so you see it. The name of the idol has changed from generation to generation. But the most popular name, arguably, is Molech. And it's an idol that had an outstretched arm. And it was made of metal. And so they will heat up the metal and they will put their children, newborn babies, on the hands of the idol. And the babies will burn to death. And then they're just beating drums. Not just to worship, but to drown the cry of the baby. That system of worship happens in many hospitals. It's not a conversation for today. You see, the church has become so carnal that if you want to expose some things, it's even Christians that will fight you. You know, I did a video explaining the deity of Christ to Muslims. It was Christians that were arguing in the comments. So, God help his church. We get problem. So, just imagine how the Muslims would have felt that, so when you people decide what you believe, then come and evangelize. It was Christians that were arguing in the comments. Jesus is not God. Go church, you know, go. Please, are you listening to me?